Hey girls, welcome to the Go Girl podcast because women are powerful. I'm your host, Ashley Caprice. Each episode is about self-love, self-care, and self-discovery. Tune in for affirmations, motivation, girl talk, and girl power. Now let's get it started. Go girl. I am so excited to have Brandi Michelle, the intuitive and empowerment coach, energy healer, and happiness coach on the Go Girl podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I'm honored to be here with you today.
I just love that you're a happiness coach because I feel like there are so many people who are walking around living an unhappy life. They look like they have everything they want. Even celebrities sometimes, like they have everything they want. They fulfill their goals. They seem to be living a good, glamorous, maybe luxurious life. However, internally, there's something still missing. They're still not feeling fulfilled. So I want to talk about that. Like, why is that?
Yeah, I really appreciate you teeing that up for me. That is my client, right? Like when you think about how we've related to happiness, we have thought for so long that happiness is an outcome of success, right? So we are raised to believe that you have these goals, and suddenly you look back and you're like, oh, I've amassed all of this success, right? I'm very financially secure. I've had every job, or I'm an entrepreneur that has this amazing business. I've just landed a big show. Whatever you were seeking, you've checked that box and you still feel like something is missing. And that's because we have to really do a paradigm shift. We have to think of happiness as a goal unto itself. And when it's its own goal and we start to think about how do we relate to happiness? What does happiness look like for us? How are we defining that? And we have all the tools that we need, right? Because we are successful individuals who've accomplished a lot, but we haven't ever really thought of happiness as a goal that we have to look to achieve. And once we think about it like that, many successful people are able to take a step back and realize that it is within reach.
Yeah, because it's within you, right?
Exactly. Everything you're searching for is inside of you, and we've made it outside of us. And through no fault of our own, I think we're really raised to think that way, right? Because our parents were raised to think that way, and their parents were raised to think that way. And so we've gone along this path thinking that success equals happiness. And oftentimes we're really trying to achieve in order to get to that place.
Yeah.
But we have to think about it differently.
Yeah, it's like we're constantly working towards something outside of us. What is like a practical tip that someone can start with on finding their happiness?
Yeah, I think that one really practical tip is that you have to know yourself deeply. And I think part of it is that we're so disconnected to who we are, which is why we have this belief that it's outside of us. And once you really connect with yourself, you're going to find that happiness comes much easier. And as a little like side of that is that also success comes much easier to you when you're happy. So a very practical tip, I think, is really just journaling every day. Like, how do you find time to and not like with prompts or anything like that, just really getting everything out of your head onto paper. And you're going to start to think, these are my thoughts. This is what I'm sitting with, but not really sitting with. Right.
Yeah.
And so when you connect in that much different way to what's going on in your head and you put it outside of you, you're going to start to have a much better connection and a better understanding of who you are, what you're here for, and how you can bring that gift to the world.
Totally. I am so about journaling. I was writing for like an hour and a half yesterday.
I love that.
I love journaling. And so, like, what is a question maybe someone can start with? And I know you said no prompts, but what is something they can ask themselves first? Like, maybe it's defining, what does happiness mean to me?
Yeah, I think that's a lovely prompt. Like, what does happiness mean to me? I often tell people to really start to think about, I think when you're not happy, what shows up in your life is strife and friction and things like that. So what you find is that the path has these kind of bumps in the road. And so one thing that you can do is really ask yourself, right? You're asking your higher self, really, like, why is this happening? And then sit really still, be really quiet with yourself, and then journal whatever is the first thing that comes to your mind, right? So our initial thought is oftentimes blame, right? Oh, it's
Mm,
because such and so, this situation, they were late, they were, they didn't give me everything I needed, right? And so we look outside of us, but really, everything happening in our life, friction, strife, even success, is a mirror of what's going on inside of us. And so the more that we can connect with that, I think, especially through journaling, the more you're going to understand. So I'd offer to people that take something that's going on in your life that you haven't really been able to make sense of, and just sit really still and ask
mm.
yourself, like, why is this showing up for me? What's the lesson I'm supposed to get from this? And then you're going to really close that gap for
I wonder
yourself.
how people would feel with that though, because some
Mhm.
people are afraid of sitting with themselves and really getting deeper because they have to be honest and they have to realize, like, oh, shoot, I am unhappy because, and it might be like the relationship they're in,
Mhm.
the company that they're working for, all these things that they thought they wanted, they have it, but it's not looking exactly the way they want it to. And they have to be honest and real and might have to remove themselves from certain situations to find that
I think
happiness.
that's true. I also believe that, like, as we change, the way we view situations that we're a part of can also change. And so
Oh, that's
there
very
are
true.
two paths, right? So you can
Yeah.
say, like, hey, the best next step for me would be to leave this situation. You could also say, if I show up differently, the situation may show up differently. And in terms of, like, that stickiness of sitting with yourself and learning more about yourself, and that being challenging, like, you really just need to take a step back and say, what's most important, right? Do
Hmm.
I want to, in this lifetime, really have this sense of purpose, this sense of fulfillment? Or do I want to continue really on what is kind of this circular journey?
Yeah.
And the lesson keeps showing up until you get it. So you can, like, hide from it forever, but it's just going to show up. And I think I oftentimes have my clients kind of write out their life, and where have there been sticky points in your life, friction in your life from start to finish. And when they take a step back from that, what they realize is it's really the same lesson.
Yep.
It's just showing up in different spots. So I'd offer to people, it's okay to get real with yourself. Sometimes it's going to be challenging. Sometimes we're going to release emotion, and that's actually really good for us to help
Yeah.
us move through and move forward. And really approach it from this space of radical responsibility. Like, it is my responsibility to change it, and also it's not my fault. And those two things are always true, right? Like, all that we've been conditioned and all that we've learned comes from something external to us. So we don't need to blame ourselves, but we do need to take radical responsibility for living the life that we dream of.
I love that you said that radical responsibility, and that's like accountability, which I talk
Mhm.
about pretty often. And I also like that you said to me, like, hey, maybe you don't have to remove yourself from the situation, but if you just change, you can see your situation differently. That's very true. I've been at jobs before where there was like friction and I felt unhappy. But then as soon as I changed my thoughts about it, it seems like everything was just peaceful, calm. I felt relaxed. I felt happy again. So it's like you don't have to remove yourself from these situations, but maybe look at it differently, change your perspective about things, know that don't take much personally,
Right.
and change yourself first before requiring changes around you. Because, like you said, you'll repeat the lesson. You remove yourself from that job, getting another job, you're unhappy again. You remove yourself from that relationship, getting another relationship, the same patterns, you're unhappy again. So look within yourself.
Absolutely. Like, you are going to be the one thing that's consistent in all of your situations, which
Yep.
means you have to acknowledge that, like, there's something about me that is attracting these situations. And, I really help people to kind of take a step back and realize that part of our story, our circumstances, and the rest of it is, like, our opinion of what's happening. So you
Mm,
and I could go to dinner and we could be sitting at the same exact table, right? And
yep.
and they could, come and they bring our salmon and yours is cooked medium well, mine's cooked medium well. And then they'll, moving us along to leave the restaurant. And then, the music is loud. And then I can leave and be like, they overcooked my salmon. It was too loud and they were rushing us. And then Ashley, you could say, wow, that's exactly how I wanted my salmon cooked. And I love that there was so much energy in the room. And I was really like having to get to another meeting. So I'm glad that the service was really quick. Now we are sitting at the same table, having the same experience, but we see it very differently. And the only thing that's true is that we had a meal together and they serve salmon. Yeah. Everything else is just our perspective on that situation. And so we can always change that perspective.
Thank you for saying that. That was beautiful. Great analogy. I do want to ask, because I do talk a lot about self-love, self-care, self-discovery on the podcast. And I know that you say that purpose, self-worth, and self-love are all interconnected. Tell me how.
Yeah. First of all, like the way I think about self-worth, when someone comes to me and they're like, hey, this isn't showing up in my life and I really don't understand why, right? Like the first step that we have to take is like, do you believe you're worthy of having that thing? Right. And I say, and it's pretty direct, but I say, show me your life and I'll show you what you think you're worthy of. Right. It's really transparent, right? So if you're worthy of living a life of purpose, if you know that in your soul, then you'll be living a life of purpose, right? Yes. Like if you know that you are worthy of having the job of your dreams, of having a relationship of your dreams, of being healthy, like all of these things show up for you. And so I think it's tricky because sometimes people come to me and they're like, I know I'm worthy of this and it's not showing up. And I mean, there is probably like a small amount of time between like you realizing you're worthy and it showing up. But if it's been a decade, then I'm pretty confident that, there's work to do there, but that's okay. Right. Because really realization is that first step. And so we've got to have this just innate love for ourselves. Right. And that I believe you cultivate. I think worthy is just a knowingness. Everyone is worthy of having the life that they dream as long as they have a good reason. Now, if you just like want to be a billionaire and you can't really like articulate why you want that, then I'm going to probably tell you like that isn't the goal for you. Right. But if you are really clear that, your purpose in life is mission driven and it's really to support not just you and your family, but the world writ large, then I'm really confident that there's work that can be done to help you get there, and that those three things really circle around each other in such a beautiful way that there can be this tipping point, right? So today you could be in a place where you're not really aligned around self-worth, self-love, and purpose. But as you do the work, right? Because we have to work on all things, you'll get there and it'll be really beautiful.
It'll be really beautiful and it'll be so worth it. It'll be so worth it.
It's the best work you'll ever do. I feel like every day we're working on something, and for me, the best work that I can do is on myself. And anytime I set a goal, I start with kind of what is the internal work that I need to do to align to that goal before I take action to actually manifest it outside of myself.
How do you work on yourself?
Oh my gosh.
What is, maybe you say you do it every day? And I'm the same. Like I said, I was journaling for like an hour and a half yesterday.
Yes.
What is something that you do on a daily basis, or even just that you did yesterday, maybe, to work on yourself?
I think three things that I do nearly every day. No one's perfect at anything. But three things I do nearly every day, and three things that I tell people, like, if you can't afford to work with anyone, and if you like never read one thing about how to be the best you can be, I recommend these three things. And so one is I always meditate. So I really try to get my brain into this alpha state, and I sit in this space where I am, I believe in God, but I'm opening myself up to the universe, infinite, intelligent God, my highest self, whatever you want to call it, the divine, to bring information to me that I need to move my life forward and to be of service in this lifetime. The second thing that I think is so important, we've mentioned a handful of times, is really journaling. So before you and I jumped on today, I was upstairs kind of looking out into San Francisco, and I was journaling. And then the third thing that I think is really, really important is having like a really serious gratitude practice. And so whether I am in receipt of a parking spot or money that I wasn't expecting, or just this really warm embrace with my 6-year-old son. I really try to sit in this space of appreciation and knowing that I don't take anything that comes to me for granted.
Ah, that was beautiful.
Oh, thank you,
That's all
Ashley.
part of my practice too. Meditation in the morning, I journal, and then a gratitude journal at night.
I love
So
it.
it's
I
like
love it.
that's why
Mm.
I could feel, yeah, I could feel the energy.
Yes.
Let's talk about those like happy moments though. I know you're big on happy moments, and people, as we were talking about earlier, think they have to continue working, 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 and then being happy. But sometimes there are small little joyful moments each day. Like, what are some examples of happy moments?
Yeah. I mean, I try to think like prepay my happy moments for the day. So, for
Okay.
instance, today, right? Like I'm on with you. I was really looking forward to our time together. I had an opportunity to walk my son to school. I'm going to
Mm.
have lunch with 3 very close girlfriends, right? And so in advance, I'm like, wow, this is going to be an excellent day for me. Right. And so if
Yes.
I set that intention as I start all of my days and then acknowledge those happy moments as they come. And so I think that life is made of moments. And so if you're always waiting for something to happen to be grateful for, then you're kind of missing out on life. Right.
Yeah.
And so I once was sitting with a woman and she was, doing my hair and she was asking me about the work that I do. And so I said, "Well, what are you grateful?" And she had like a 3-year-old and she was like, "I'm so grateful for my child." And that
Mm.
is beautiful. Like you should absolutely be grateful for your child. And also that was like 3 years ago, right? And so we
Right.
need to really stay in this constant practice of gratitude, right? Like I tell people to think of the universe as you would a friend, right? And so,
Mhm.
Ashley, if after we got off this call, you sent me a note and said, "Thank you so much for being on the podcast," and I did not send any response, I was like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad I was on that podcast. Like, you
Right.
should have had me on. I think I had some good things to say, right? Like, you would probably be like, not only do I not want her back on my podcast, but
Right.
I may not even recommend her to a friend. And if someone asked me,
Mhm.
like, "Hey, how was Brandi on the podcast?" You'd be like, "She was fine, but like, I sent her a note and she didn't say anything in return." And so I want people to think of the universe like that. And not that like, it's not like this quid pro quo, but hey, when you get something in life, you should just pause and say thank you. And we should be doing that very regularly. And I believe that opens us up to being available for more. Right. And so,
Yes.
and then your life really, I think, will move into this state of greater ease, more flow. You'll start to see all of these synchronicities
Yeah.
because you're on the lookout for it. And the brain is so powerful that it's going to draw to you that which you're seeking. And so if you're
Yes.
seeking good things, then they come to you.
Exactly.
So beautiful.
I feel like we make it sound so easy. And I think it's because we're on this life path, because other people are probably like, they call it woo woo, they call it other things and just don't understand or don't think it could be that easy. And I'm like, it totally is. It all starts with your mind and what you're thinking of the world, and then it'll come back to you. Like I'm a firm believer in it, but some people think it just sounds too easy.
Yeah, I think that is true. And what I offer to people who feel like, "Hey, this isn't easy," is just start with something simple, right? Like something that you don't have a lot of energy around. Like it would be hard to just like call in a new house if you think this is woo woo and you don't believe it, right? Because your brain is going to be really combating that which you're seeking. But if you can
Hmm.
just say like, "Hey, I'm going to set an intention that I'm going to get really great parking spots for the week," right? Like there's no like collective consciousness about parking spots. You weren't raised to believe a certain thing about parking spots, right? Like, so it's just something really easy that I say, start with that. Start to see if you can like align your brain to getting you into this space where you're calling in something. And then I think you start to build the muscle, right? Because we have to
Yes.
give people something easy to see that they are co-creating their own reality, because
Hmm.
otherwise they think that the world is happening to them, and the
Yeah.
world isn't happening to us. It can feel that way, but we can really step outside of that and harness the power of our brain to have this really beautiful life that you're actively co-creating.
Yes, co-creating. I love that. When you look at it that way, life becomes fun. It becomes
Mhm.
enjoyable. You know,
Yeah.
everything is happening as it should. And you start seeing it that way. And even if some negative things might happen, you'll know, like, okay, it's a lesson in this somewhere. I know things are
Yeah.
going to get right back on track. And you'll just start seeing things all a shift in the perspective. Totally,
Totally.
totally.
Yes.
We do also talk a lot about relationships on this podcast. My mission is to encourage women to have healthier relationships with themselves and others. So I do want to ask the question, like, what role do you think that love and intimacy play in happiness?
Oh, I love that. I would love people to get to a point where they don't believe anything external to them is a source of their happiness, and that their happiness is a source of all things external to them. And
Mm,
so I believe that happy people have happy relationships,
yeah.
right? And I believe that happy people have great jobs. And I believe that happy people are healthy. And I think that there is this umbrella of happiness that allows for a cascade of happiness in your life. I think that when we are disconnected from happiness, that I think of life as having three legs to a stool is how I explain it. And so
Mm,
one of those legs are health and wellness. So that's like people may be trying to be thin, or people may be trying to be healthy, or they may have an illness they're looking to move through. And then one leg is the relationships that you just mentioned, both with self, others, and loving relationship with a significant other. And then the third leg of the stool is really careers, finance, and success. And so I think if you're unhappy, inevitably one or two of those legs of the stool is going to be really not operating at full throttle. When you are happy and you're prioritizing joy, I think all legs of your stool have this ability to be really beautiful. And
yeah.
so I offer to people that, again, don't seek anything outside of you to bring you joy, to be your own source of joy. And then you're just going to attract so many beautiful things to you, including
Mhm.
a life partner.
Yes, I totally believe that. I
Yeah,
believe that I'm in a really good, healthy, happy relationship. Been 2 years now, and
I love that.
just super happy, full of joy. Just got engaged. No, I'm excited.
Oh, congratulations. Let's take a moment to celebrate that. I love, right? Like I
Yes.
think we are meant to be in community with others, and I think that when you can really show up in the world as your whole self, that you just attract really beautiful humans into your
Mhm.
space, and that's when we have these really loving relationships. And I think it's challenging when relationships are a source of our lessons, because
Ooh,
it's there in a big way every day, right?
yeah,
Because you
yeah.
can't like it's not like work where you turn it off and you go away. Like your relationship is always there. And so I love that for you. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. That's why it's
Mhm.
so important for me, like, to talk to women about, like, choosing better and everything because, like you said, that is a big portion of your life with someone
Yes.
else, and they could build you up or break you down, like, but it depends
Yes.
on who you're choosing.
Right. I agree.
Yeah,
But I would say, my radical
I
responsibility,
love it. Yep.
you're building yourself up or breaking yourself down kind of when we do make these choices. And I think we're attracting, like I've been married for 8.5 years, and I've been
Mhm.
with the love of my life for 11 years. And he is, as I say, perfect for me. And I think that when you get to this space of like being able to be in a relationship that's easy, and you kind of think back to when that hasn't been the case, right? Like I think
Correct.
those lessons were there for me, and I'm glad that I was able to learn them, because it really prepared me to be in this really
Yep.
amazing relationship now.
Same
Yeah.
story, same story.
Yes, I love it.
A little earlier, you said joy quite a few times, and I
Yeah.
was on your Instagram doing a little stalking, but research,
Love it.
and I saw a video that says, "Let's prioritize joy over success." So
Mhm.
let's get into that. Share with me a little bit more because, again, like we said, people think, oh, because you're successful in the area, maybe business, you have all the happiness and joy in the world. But let's
Mhm.
talk about it for real. Let's prioritize joy over success. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think that we are in this world whereby oftentimes, people by every outward measure, people think that they're really happy and they're
Yeah.
really successful. And we are everything we're seeking to achieve in the world, I believe it's because we think it will bring us happiness. So
Mm.
we think it will make us joyful. And so, again, if you can say, I am going to think about my happiness as the foremost, most important thing that I do in the world. So for me, for instance, like I won't even really wash my dishes unless I feel like, okay, I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to clean the kitchen. This is going to be amazing, and I'm going to turn on some music and it's just going to be a really fun time. Right.
Mm.
But if
Mhm.
it's like something that is like grudging for me that day, then I won't really embark upon it. Right. Hopefully my husband will pick up the slack. Right. And so
Right.
you have to be in this space of really thinking that everything I'm choosing to bring into my life, I bring it in for my greatest and highest good, which is to be happy, right? And so what I tell people is that all that you're seeking, it's because you think it's going to bring you joy. And you're not going to get there on this path of like worry, anxiety, fear, right? And I'm like, those two things are so disconnected, right? We have these really dense emotions that we can feel all the time and we think we're going to get here. But instead, we have to shift that and say, I'm going to be here already, regardless
Mhm.
of my external circumstances. And then I'll more easily align to those external circumstances,
Yes.
right? And so I think that when you prioritize joy over success, success is inevitable.
Yes. Totally hear that. So what I'm hearing in this whole conversation pretty much is radical responsibility. It starts with you. All the joy, all the happiness that you want, seek it within you first. Get those practical tips such as the gratitude journal, regular journaling, meditation, moving your body, finding little moments of happiness every single day to build that up, build that muscle to where you notice happiness around you all of the time. And
Mhm.
then that'll attract more happiness, more happy moments, more fulfillment at your job, in your relationship, within yourself, within your friendships, all of that.
Well stated. And I
Yes.
also think what's so important is that when you find yourself off track, just know that you can choose again, right? Like, I think we
Yes.
get into this space of like, oh, I'm having a bad day, but you don't have to have an entire day that's bad. You can have a moment
Yep.
where you're off track and you just quickly pivot back, right? And
Yep.
you choose again and you choose again and you choose again. And when you keep choosing joy instead of allowing really a snowball effect of these really dense emotions of anxiety, worry, fear, then you're going to be in this really beautiful place.
Yes. Love that. And I love that sometimes you might just have a bad moment. Don't
Mhm.
claim a bad day because more
Mm,
bad things might happen. Just say,
exactly.
okay, that was a bad moment. Shake it off. Keep it moving.
Mhm.
One last question, Brandy. It's been a
Yes.
pleasure having you on the podcast. What does self love mean to you?
Yeah. Self love means that above all else, I know that innately I am worthy of being loved, both by myself, both
Yeah.
externally. It's this really idea of that I find myself beautiful. I find myself funny. I am really happy with who I am. I'm happy with how I show up in the world and that which I'm giving. I can give myself feedback, but I know that at all moments that I am love and I am loved.
Yes. Ooh, I love that.
Yes.
Brandy, such a joy to have you on the podcast. Where can people find you?
You can find me at www.brandymichelle.com. You can find me on Instagram at Brandy Michelle, and you can also find me on Twitter and LinkedIn.
And last question, just I know I thought I was wrapping up, but one more question.
Yeah.
What are some things that make you happy? Since we're talking about happiness, what are some
Oh, I
things that make you
love that.
happy?
I believe fundamentally that I'm always happy. Now, the things that I
Yeah.
enjoy doing,
First of all,
which
I love how you got so excited and even more happy. I
yes.
felt happy for you.
Yes, I am like I try to really sit in this space of happiness as often as possible. But the things that I really enjoy doing are spending time with my 6-year-old. I live right in front of a national park here in San Francisco. So I like to run out there and just like walk through the park and see the awe of these, trees that have lived for hundreds of years and to ground. I love being near the ocean. I love traveling
Yes.
with my family, reading and cooking.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
See,
things.
all of those things, girls, can make you happy. Cooking, reading, spending time with family, all of those things. And it doesn't cost a dime. I
Doesn't
love
cost a
it.
dime. Yeah.
Brandi Michelle, it's been a pleasure having you on the Go Girl podcast. I want to say Go Girl to you for being happy and sharing your happiness and your love and your joy with everyone and with the podcast. So thank you so much and Go Girl.
Oh, thank you, Ashley, so much for having me. I love that you're doing this beautiful podcast and bringing these messages to the world because they're so needed. And back at you. Go, girl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Go Girl podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And be sure to share this episode with your girlfriends. Connect with me on social media at Go Girl Movement or subscribe to the blog at www.gogirlmovement.org. By the way, have you purchased your copy of the Go Girl Guidebook, a woman's interactive guide to self-love? 10 chapters full of ways to love yourself better. It's available right now on Amazon. Thank you for your support. I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Go Girl.